Welcome back to Hmong Unabridged, a space where we share the journey of being a Hmong daughter navigating between two cultures and reflecting on the childhood memories that shaped who we are. We're continuing with our folktale series today, and we hope you're enjoying these stories just as much as we love sharing them with you. I'm your host for today, Banya. Before we begin, let me share that this is a tale that is based on the traditional Southeast Asian folktale known as the 12 Sisters, or Nang Sip Song in Thai. It has been passed down for generations that takes many forms across the region, including Cambodian, Lao, and Burmese versions. It was even translated into French under the title Le Deux Sœurs. What follows is a retelling of the Thai version, which, while it may not be an exact rendering of the original, I have done my best to honor the spirit of the tale. This beloved folktale has left such a deep impression on Thai culture that it was even adapted into a television drama 3 different times, bringing the ancient story to modern screens with rich visuals and emotional depths. So without further ado, this is the story of the 12 Sisters, or Nang Sip Song. A long time ago, there was a rich merchant and his beautiful wife who lived happily in a big house. Despite their good fortune, the couple didn't have any children. One day, they went together to a shrine and prayed under a sacred tree to give them children. Not long thereafter, the wife became pregnant, and the rich man wished with all his might that the child would be a boy. But his wife gave birth to a girl. His wife then conceived again, and not just 2 or 3 more times, but she became pregnant 12 times, and each time she had a daughter. By that time, his business started to go wrong for him since the ships that took his goods to sell in another country were robbed by pirates several times. The former rich man found it hard having so many mouths to feed, so he made a plan to abandon his daughters in the forest. He told his wife this plan, and she reluctantly agreed. But Pao, the youngest, overheard their conversations. In the early morning, their father took all 12 daughters into the forest for a walk, and then he told them to wait while he goes off to scavenge the forest area. However, he lied and turned around and abandoned them there. Pao, who had left some rice grains on the forest floor, was able to guide her older sisters back home, to their father's surprise. After a while, the father decided to abandon them in the forest again, and this time he took them farther than before, twisting and turning in every which way. Pao was not prepared this time. They were indeed lost and abandoned. They spent days walking deeper and deeper into the forest and became very hungry. Their father had given them 12 packets of rice, but when they opened them, they found out that 11 of them were filled with sand, and only 1 had rice in it. They shared what little rice and ate it, crying, lamenting their misfortune. Wandering aimlessly, the 12 girls came to a lake where they tried to catch fish to satiate their hunger. Each of the sisters succeeded in catching a fish, and 11 of them playfully poked the eyes of their fish with sharp twigs, except for the youngest one, Pao, who had some compassion for her fish, so she only poked 1 eye out. Finally, they arrived at the Yaksha kingdom, which translated into a kingdom filled with mystical spirits. But in this version, it's an ominous kind of spirit. In this case, it's a kingdom of ogres. It was in this land that an ogress named Samtulama saw the exhausted and emaciated girls resting under a tree and decided to adopt them. But it wasn't out of kindness. She had wanted to raise them and eat them once they grew of age. The ogress transformed herself into a human being and brought the 12 sisters to her home. For many years, she treated them as her own daughters, and under her care, the 12 girls grew up into 12 beautiful young women. One day, while Sangtulama was away hunting, the 12 sisters met an old man who told them that Sangtulama was not a human, but an ogress who liked to eat young women like them. So they fled from the ogre kingdom and wandered for days until they arrived at a clear river where they could take a bath to refresh themselves. The local king saw the 12 ladies playing in the water and fell in love with each and every one of them. for they were beauties he'd never seen before. So he brought them to his palace and married the 12 sisters. Then Santumala came back to her home and found that the girls were gone. She flew into a rage. She quickly found out where they were and how they had married the handsome king from across the world. With both rage and jealousy, she transformed herself into a very beautiful young woman, more beautiful than any of the 12 sisters. Then she went to the city of the king and asked to meet him. The king was spellbound by Santumala's beauty and swiftly married her, promoting her to the rank of first queen. Jealous of the king's favoritism, the 12 sisters were not kind to the new queen. Although they were polite to her in front of the king, they were often mean to her in private. To take revenge on the 12 sisters, Santumala feigned sickness, and the king became worried. She told the king that the cause of her disease was the ill treatment of the 12 other wives, and the only thing that would heal her would be a medicine distilled from the eyes of the 12 sisters. The king was so infatuated with Santumala that he assented to her request. Under his orders, 11 of his wives had both their eyes gouged out. When it came to the youngest queen, Pao, she begged and bribed the servant to leave her with one eye, and so he did, and thus had only one eye removed. Following this, the 12 sisters were banished to a deep, dark cave from where there was no way out. Then the king instructed his servants not to bring any food or water, and not to help the 12 sisters in any way. Little did the king know, all the 12 sisters were pregnant, and in that deep, dark cave, all gave birth to babies. However, each time a child was born, he would die. Since the women were being starved under Santumala's strict order, each one took the flesh of their infant and divided him into 12 pieces to share with the other sisters to eat. One by one, from the oldest to the youngest, each will do the same. However, when it came to the youngest, instead of eating the flesh of her sister's babies, she dried the pieces of meat, hoping her child would survive and she could give her share back to her sisters. And thus, when she gave birth, her son was alive. She lied to her sisters that her son was dead and gives them the dried meat she had saved. As they ate, one sister was heard complaining how dry and tough her child was, but they didn't question any further. Pao named her son Rothason. As he grew, he found a secret way out of the deep cave. He had bought a rooster that won in all the rooster fights within the city. With the prize money, he bought rice, and from then onward he regularly brought food for his mother and his 11 aunts. As years went by, Rothason became a handsome young man. When the king heard of him, he invited him to the palace, and there he played games of dice with the monarch, displaying great skills. Because of this, Santumala found out that the 12 sisters were still alive, and she was angry that her plan to get rid of them had failed. Again she feigned sickness and told the king that only a certain fruit growing in her kingdom could cure her. She also told the king that only Rothason would be able to fetch it. Santumala cunningly wrote a letter to her adoptive daughter, Mary, in the language of the ogress. If this young man arrives to our kingdom in the morning, devour him in the morning, but if he arrives in the night, devour him in the night. She then gave the letter to Rothason and instructed him to hand it over to her adoptive daughter, and lied that she will help him gather this fruit. On the way to the kingdom, Rothason met an old wise man whom they called Rishi. Rothason told the man of his journey and his task to bring back the fruit from the Yakshi kingdom. Seeing the purity in the young boy, Rishi gave him a flying horse named Pachi to ride and allowed him to spend the night and rest. While the boy slept, Rishi, knowing the ogress language, altered the meaning of the letter by replacing the word devour him with marry him. Thus, when he arrived at the kingdom of the ogress, Rothason went straight to Mary and showed her the letter. Mary was surprised with the content, and looking at the young man, she was very pleased, as he is a virtuous-looking young man, and handsome as well, and she fell in love with him at first sight, celebrating her wedding with him straight away as directed in the letter. Mary was a kind-hearted and beautiful lad, and Rothason lived with her very happily for some time, but he remembered his blind mother and aunts, who still stayed in the dark cave. While showing him the palace, Mary had told Rothason about certain magic medicines that was kept in a locked room her aunt had kept throughout the years, including Rothason's mother and aunt's eyes. Then he made a plan to get Mary to sleep by making her drink wine and take the eyes for his mother and aunts. Then one night, after Mary was sleeping, Rothason stole many medicines and the eyes from the locked room. Mary woke up and looked for her husband and saw him far away, riding on his flying horse. She suddenly grew into a giant and followed Rothason, crying and calling him with a loud voice. To stop her, Rothason threw a magic branch that turned the space between them into a deep lake and a high mountain. Seeing her husband escape from her, Mary wailed in despair, asking him to stop. Rothason was moved by her sadness and replied that he would be back after he finished his urgent mission. Then Rothason flew away and left Mary with a broken heart, crying bitterly at the shore of the lake. Rothason arrived back in his city and killed the evil Sanctimala with a magic club. He then went to the deep dark cave and healed the eyes of his mother and aunts by putting them back in their places with a special magic ointment. His mother and aunts left their deep cave and regained their former status with the king. They invited him to live in the palace again, but Rothason told them that he had to hurry back to live with Mary, who was waiting for him. But meanwhile, Mary had already died of sorrow. During her long wait, she had shed so many tears that she had become blind. Before she died, she solemnly vowed that she would follow Rothason in every future reincarnation, that she died with her grandmother crying at her side and surrounded by her servants. When Rothason arrived back to the Ogre Kingdom, he realized it was too late. He heard about her vow and carried his wife's body away. Full of sadness at having lost everything, he dropped dead while holding his wife in his arms. Finally, their spirits flew together to their next rebirth, where they would be joined again. The end. In this story, there's actually a lot of themes and lessons that I've learned. One, which is the resilience of the sisterhood between the 12 sisters. Despite being abandoned, deceived, blind, and starved, the 12 sisters never lose their bond. Their loyalty to one another, especially seen in their willingness to share the only rice, or even their tragic willingness to share the bodies of their lost children, speaks to the strength of family and sisterhood, even in despair. The story also tells of the dangers of jealousy and deception. The jealousy of the 12 sisters led Sanctimala to commit terrible crimes against them, deceiving the king, blinding the sisters, and ultimately destroying themselves. And not only this, but Sanctimala was indeed an ogress who wanted to eat and kill the 12 sisters. So you see, she had a beauty that concealed her malice, which fooled even the king. So in this, it tells us that true danger often wears a pleasant face, and jealousy can ruin not only others, but oneself as well. Rothason, in this case, represents wisdom and cunning over strength. He survived not because of brute strength, but because of his kindness, cleverness, and help from wise mentors like the Rishi. Even the altered letter becomes a moment where words, not weapons, can change his fate. So here we can see that intelligence and virtue are more powerful than forces alone. And lastly, what I saw in this story is the patience and compassion and love. Mary, who is the ogress's adopted daughter, she genuinely fell in love with Rothason, and because of this becomes a tragic, sympathetic figure. Though her origins are monstrous, her actions are kind, and her love is pure. And this love transcends birth or bloodline, and love can blossom even in unlikely places. So this ends our podcast for today, and we hope that you join us again for our next podcast to come.